Hey, it's Mike from Apollo here, and we're talking about the high rate of failure for go-to-market activities for startups. Good news, I'll give you 5 tips to solve those. But this is really something that I don't see a lot of people talking about. In fact, it's a pretty unspoken thing is how much failure there is with go-to-markets. And that's particularly so in the first few for the early stage startups. So what I want to do is take you through why this happens, what actually transpires. And the good news is I'm going to give you 5 very clear ideas about how to solve this. And perhaps if you wait till the end, I'll give you the biggest idea yet. But let's get into the notes. Let's talk about the black hole. Yes, it's the black hole of building your product. So it starts all wonderful. You've had this inspiring idea as a startup, and then you dive into the building of the product. Maybe it's a pilot, maybe it's an MVP, maybe it's a prototype. So you have to run around and grab a bunch of people that can build this vision that you have as a founder. Maybe you are right in there, in amongst it, building with the team as well. And invariably, it's got a lot quicker, but good 3 to 6 months before you have something that's really shareable, you might introduce to your first paying customers. The thing that I'm talking about, which is the black hole here, is most of this chapter of the building of the first product becomes very inward, internal facing. You're obsessed about the sprint, the code, the features, the bugs, the backlog. All of those things are occupying all the unexpected challenges, finding the right technology pieces to go into the puzzle. So this draws a lot of your attention. And it's a massive universe. If it's a software product, you've got everything from hosting, deployment, web services, AI, choosing the language you're going to deploy your application in, thinking about the UI, UX. There's so many different layers. There's the data model that supports the product, all of that sort of stuff. So big universe draws you in. It's kind of really cool and interesting, but it's also enormously draining because you have to figure out so many things. Some of the things you're doing are for a first time. Now, this means that you spend a good 3 or 6 months inside the business building, and all your energy has been there. So what happens is this next point. It's like a pivot. It's all of a sudden, hey, it's ready to share with the world. Let's go get our first paying customers. We've got a pilot that the biz dev person's gone and sold. So we have to be ready for that. And this can feel a bit like not only like a quick pivot into a new world, because marketing is as big as the product world, meaning you have top, middle, bottom of funnel, paid and owned media, you have data analytics, you have service providers, agencies, content, marketing. There's so much going on in that world. It's a bit of an explosion because you've just been deep down in one world and you are now thrown into another world, which is completely the same size and very complex. The important thing is you're not as in control of marketing as you might be with product. You can have quite a lot of degree of control over what you build, but you don't have that same level of control of how many people click on your ads, on your videos. So this is why it becomes a bit of an explosion, and it often comes for a team that's already pretty tired. Like they've just got across the line, first version of the product, and now there's like a new marathon to run. So it feels sudden, it's quite abrupt, and it's like a bit of a dawning upon founders of like, oh boy, now we need to go to market. So then the next thing that happens when faced with this, they've come out of the black hole, boom, it's an explosion. And then they try to do too much too early. I recently toured around to Adelaide and did a workshop there. And I did one in Sydney as well with the team at Tankstream Labs. Shout out to them. Met a lot of founders, and it blew me away that a lot of founders launching their products were trying to do multiple markets, multiple segments, trying to do so much selling so many value propositions and features too much too early. This is really, it reminds me a bit of like a once a year birthday party where everybody runs around to get the party organized. They're exhausted the day the party comes. They just kind of get the party done and all fall over the next day. This is what the first launch often feels like. And it's really high on activity. Meaning like everybody's like doing a lot of stuff because often the founders haven't chosen to focus enough. They're doing so many different things that just getting it done was the result. So it's a lot of activity, not a lot of signal. And this is really challenging because you're exhausted because you kind of over deployed resources, but also it's pretty hard to figure out what's working when you've done so many different things. And most startups are resource constrained, so probably chance is that not everything was done great anyway. So invariably, it leaves founders with this situation where they're low on signal. They're not really sure what happened. And the big mistake is they treated it like a once a year birthday party. And we're going to come back to that and how we can solve it. So a pretty dire picture, really. And it does surprise me how little this is talked about and how particularly important focus and resource allocation is for an early stage company, because invariably they don't have much resources. So the bets they make, they need to really count. So I have a simple solution for this. It's called my rule of one. And it's all going to be about focus and choosing for one. And where do we start? We choose with one market. So it is very tempting. You can open up your browser and look at companies from all over the world. So you might be tempted to think that you can launch your product or service in multiple markets at the same time, maybe to multiple industries. Here is my golden rule. Just pick one. For example, if you're an Australian startup, you might be thinking Australia or Singapore, Australia or the US. I would say pick one. And let's just say we chose Australia. Then inside of that choice, if let's just say it's a B2B startup, pick one sector, healthcare or financial services, whatever it is, one. Because by saying, hey, we're going to focus on selling our product to financial services in Australia, you've already reduced your world down, you've kind of compacted it, you've done yourself a great service in being way more focused. But there's more focus we can create. Okay, so the second one is around your segments. So where financial services, that's who we're selling to, we're just selling in Australia. Your first choice is going to be around segmentation now. So if it's B2B, invariably you're going to be looking at small, medium, or enterprise as which segment within the business-to-business industry of financial services in Australia. I want you to really pick one segment. So in this case, let's just imagine we choose the mid-market. Now, inside of that choice, you can get even narrower. So generally, mid-market, depending on where you are in the world, might be 25 to 250 people in the organization. You could say, let's do the lower end of the mid-market. Let's do 25 to 100 employees. We're going to focus in on that. I really, really like the sound of that. I think we can go even further right here. So we could say, let's take a digital adoption. Let's use a proxy for do they have HubSpot installed? Do they have Stripe installed? And let's see if they can afford to spend $5,000 a month or above. And then what happens is your segment gets really, really defined. I would say you're in niche territory right now, and that's a good thing. The reason it's a good thing is you might find that there's only 2,000 or 3,000 companies that match this ideal customer profile, this segment, and that's okay. I think if you can really speak to extreme pain and urgency in that, you'll convert enough of those people and you can build out from there. So you see what we did is it's all about one market, one segment, and really focusing down on it. Now, the temptation in this example would be for our third rule is choosing more than one person to sell to. And that's where I want to help you. So far, we've said one market, one segment. Let's say one person. We're going to sell to one person. Now, if we had targeted financial services, B2B, let's say that we could sell this product to either a chief operations officer or chief sales officer or chief revenue officer. Let's say we have to choose one, because if we choose chief operations officer inside of financial services in that low end of the mid-market, in Australia, we're going to be able to speak to them so specifically. We're going to be able to speak to them such that, when they hear, see, and witness all of the go-to-market elements, whether it's digital assets, in real life, at an event, on a call, on a demo, you are able to talk so specifically to them. It's like they understand my greatest challenge. They understand the things that are really keeping me up at night. So you can see what's starting to happen. One market, one segment, one persona, you're really tightening things up. Now, the great news is what comes after that is we need to make another singular choice, one value proposition. Now, invariably, your value proposition will have been built using the value prop canvas. But the shorthand of this is, let's say that you have discovered that this COO is trying to get a job done in their role at their mid-market company in Australia. And you have figured out the pains and gains they experience when trying to get that job done. And your product directly addresses this severe pain. And because of the segmentation, maybe you also have some other signals that that they have some urgency to buy. So you can say, unlock, your temptation here. Let's talk about temptations. Let's say you can make a technical process more simple, less complex, or you can save money on a particular process. So saving time and money are different value propositions. Choose one. What you see that this does is it then enables you to really almost forensically zero in on this very particular person and solve that pain point. So what did we just do? We chose one market, Australia, financial services. We chose one segment. We went for that lower part of the mid-market with a couple of specific signals, qualifiers. We sold only to the COO, and we focused on making it less complex. So now these are the 4 of the 5 rules to follow. The next and the final one is one funnel. So you may have heard of full funnel marketing. What we really mean here, it's really simple. So you've got the top of the funnel, which is awareness and familiarity. Then you move them through consideration into conversion, maybe a bit of loyalty at the end. This is the funnel. So what I want you to do is to activate this COO persona in this segment. I want you to make sure you've got something for them that really works at top of funnel, mid funnel, and lower funnel. And, for example, you have to make a choice between perhaps which event that you might turn up to, which podcasts you might be interviewed on. You might then think in the middle, you might have a diagnostic tool that helps them figure out how complex their situation is and the potential complexity that could be resolved, made more simpler. Maybe it's a diagnostic tool, who knows? And lastly, as you're converting them, there will be certain drivers, guarantees, service level agreements, conversion techniques that will be really important. And if they're happy after 90 days, you want them to refer another client. So this would be the funnel where you need to turn up. And I want you to just do one thing in each of those 3 steps, top, middle, and bottom of funnel. And another good way of thinking about your funnel is, what are you doing on paid activity? What are you doing on your own media? So paid activity, Google Ads, LinkedIn, own media, that definitely is like your own newsletters and websites. And then earned media, of course, is socials, such as YouTube and LinkedIn. So you want to have one funnel. You want to do top, mid, and bottom. You want to do paid, earned, and owned. And then you can really start to isolate some things that are working. And you can then start to look at the data, draw some insights. And that really kind of moves us to how I want you to go away from these 5 tips for your go-to-market, which is that this should not be like the classic once-a-year product launch. This should not be like the once-a-year birthday party. I want to shift you into a different way of thinking. And this is how it works. So let's say you started your go-to-market and we used our COO, financial services mid-market approach. And let's say our sprint was 2 weeks or maybe 4 weeks. At the end of that, you can look at the data and ask, if we could change one thing to improve the results, what would it be? Maybe you want to switch. Maybe you did the complexity value prop. Maybe you want to try a time saver or budget saver. Now, then you could consider running an A/B test. So you do both propositions, you change nothing else, run both propositions and see which one performs better. Then you might get an insight for the 3rd sprint that actually it all works pretty good at top of funnel. It's actually in the middle of the funnel that both were challenged. So that diagnostic tool, that demo, that evaluator, that calculator, maybe they need to change to open up the conversion rates. And you can see what you start to do is you have these iterative cycles. If you're a product person, it's like continuous product development, it's continuous marketing or a go-to-market system. So you think around repeating, isolating factors, improving each of them. And over time, each of these small improvements, they're like little increments, but they build and they build to a point where you create a flywheel effect. And the ultimate test of knowing if your go-to-market is working is that you know that you can deploy more resources and budget and get clearer outcomes for the business within, say, 90 days. So I increase my marketing budget today. I know I'm going to see this on the P&L 90 days. That is a go-to-market system. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave your thoughts and comments. What are the challenges that you have when you're trying go-to-market? I hope this gets you talking about something that I see nobody talking about. And I hope that this gets you on the way to creating a go-to-market system that's repeatable, scalable, so that you can grow and be the best company that you can be. All right, I'll see you next time.